Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this, our first meeting of the year for the Growth and Sustainability Committee. Yes, you probably heard that we did motions at previous meetings, but those were in committee of the whole. So this is our first full meeting of 2026. Before I start with the meeting agenda, I'll provide a few comments. Comments can be made from members of the public for a matter that is on the agenda pardon me, by advising the chair during the request to address an item on the agenda section of the agenda. The public may submit written comments for matters that are on the agenda to jpaylove@westlincoln.ca before 4:30 on the day of the meeting for consideration by committee. Comments received after 4:30 p.m. on the day of the committee meeting will be considered at the following council meeting. Comments submitted are included in the record. This meeting is being live streamed as well as recorded on Township's website. The Township of West Lincoln, being part of Niagara Region, is situated on treaty land. This land is steeped in the rich history of the First Nations, such as the Hattawandrak, the Haudenosaunee, and the Anishinaabe, including the Mississauga of the Credit First Nation. There are many First Nation, Métis, and Inuit from across Turtle Island that live and work in Niagara today. The Township of West Lincoln, as part of the Regional Municipality of Niagara, stands with all Indigenous people, past and present, in promoting the wise stewardship of all lands on which we live. Now let me ask, no, I don't have to ask for anything until afterwards. We're going to enter into closed session at this moment. I'm going to need a mover and a seconder to go into closed. Councillor Trombetta and Councillor Maychuk. The next portion of this meeting will be closed to the public to consider the following pursuant to Section 239, Sub 2 of the Municipal Act 2001. Kelly Waugh, CIMA, regarding educational presentation for parking rules and regulations. This falls under training, and the applicable closed session exemption is educational training session, and that is Section 3.1. Is there anyone wishing to speak to the motion? If not, please put the motion forward in a form of a vote. Mr. Clerk. It's cold. The computers. Has everyone got their vote in front of them?
Yep, already.
Oh, it didn't come up in front of mine. I think so, yes. Okay, that motion carries. And I apologize. Okay, before we go into the meeting any further and before we go into camera, tonight we have regrets from Councillor Bradrick and Councillor Rayner. So we will not have them present, and they are not included in any of the votes. Amen. So that motion carried. We're going into camera. Thank you very much. We're back in the Growth and Sustainability Committee meeting. We've just come out of camera. And Mr. Clerk, if you'll report.
Through the chair to the rest of council and for the public, council rose without reporting. They received an informational presentation regarding provincial parking regulations enclosed.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. So we come now to the part of our meeting, which is the public meetings, of which we have two this evening. The first being a community improvement plan. This is a meeting to consider a community improvement plan, or otherwise known as a CIP. The Township of West Lincoln is proposing an affordable housing community improvement plan. Pursuant to Section 28 of the Planning Act, RSO 1990, Section 13 invites interested persons to attend a statutory public meeting to obtain feedback and comments regarding the CIP, the proposed community improvement plan area, as well as the proposed incentive programs. It is the function of council to listen to public comments and ask questions for clarification only. It is not the function of council to debate the merits of community improvement plan during this public meeting or respond to questions posed by the public meeting during this public meeting. From the public during this public meeting. Should the public have any questions on the application, please contact planning staff as they will provide any information being requested. Please be aware that council debate of the application will occur at a subsequent meeting with an accompanying recommendation report regarding the proposed community improvement area plan. Okay, in accordance with the Planning Act and the Minister, a person or public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions to the Township of West Lincoln before the community improvement plan is adopted. The person or public body may not be added as a party to the hearing of an appeal before the Ontario Land Tribunal unless, in the opinion of the tribunal, there are reasonable grounds to do so. Mr. Clerk, can you please provide the method and dates by which notice of this meeting was made?
Proper notice was given by way of email circulation to agencies and newspaper circulation posted to the subject property, the Township website, and the Township Administration Building on January 9th, 2026.
Thank you very much. Mr. Borma, our Director of Growth and Sustainability, will now explain the purpose and reason for this community improvement plan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Last year in 2025, Council approved in their 2025 budget the creation of an affordable housing community improvement plan. The Township retained Nethery Planning in 2025 to start this work, and Nethery has provided a draft CIP as well as a background report, has conducted a number of surveys, and they're here this evening to do a brief presentation in support of this public meeting. And so I'll pass it over to Michelle Diplock from Nethery Planning, who will give you a brief presentation and have an opportunity for the public also to ask questions and provide statements.
At the appropriate time. Thank you, Mr. Borma. And welcome to our committee meeting. We're glad you're here and glad that you've got a presentation to give us a little more clarity.
Perfect. Good evening, members of council. My name is Michelle Diplock, and I'm here with Nethery Planning to present the draft Affordable Housing Community Improvement Plan for the purposes of today's public meeting. So just to begin with a bit of a timeline for how the project has rolled out since we were engaged in this project is in October, we launched an initial online public survey that helped to create and inform the background report that we did release in December. On January 14th, we did hold a public open house to talk about the draft CIP as well as the background report. And what we're bringing forward today is the draft CIP and the background report for public and council consideration for the statutory public meeting. Provided we are able to accommodate the any feedback or comments that we hear from tonight's public meeting, we are targeting a council adoption of the Affordable Housing CIP for March 2nd or 23rd, 2026. So as you can see on the slide deck, there is a timeline of where we're at, and I will go back to this towards the end of our presentation. So to begin with, a community improvement plan, typically called a CIP, is a workaround for the township to be able to provide incentives for different types of development that they are looking to encourage. So typically, provincial and municipal act prohibitions on bonusing mean that without a CIP in place, you're not able to either provide grants or loans or any exemptions to different landowners within the municipality. The creation of this affordable housing CIP will enable the township to offer grants and loans and other forms of financial support to encourage projects that meet local goals, such as creating more affordable housing. The proposed CIP will give the township a structured way to partner with residents, developers, and community organizations to make it easier and more affordable to build the types of housing to meet the community's needs. So to begin, we'll just do a light legislative overview. Through the background report, there's a lot more detail in all of these sections, but we did review provincial legislation and the local policy context, as well as the regional official plan and CIP programs. We did note that there are new regional programs coming forward. So the idea with this program is it won't duplicate those efforts, but it will be designed to stack with regional incentive programs. So as we began this, we did do an initial survey. We received a total of 88 responses, with most residents expressing strong support for the development of an affordable housing CIP and identifying a range of different local housing needs. Often kind of the themes that we saw were a desire to see more affordable rental units and attainable home ownership opportunities, particularly for family-sized units. Many participants noted the importance of increasing housing options for seniors and young adults to support aging in place and community retention. And respondents also expressed a strong interest in partnerships with nonprofit housing providers and social service organizations to deliver supportive housing, community space, and related services. So building on that feedback we received, we released the background report with the legislative context, as well as some best practices that will inform or have informed the draft CIP. On January 14th, we did have the public open house on that background report, and it provided an opportunity for small group discussion with interested stakeholders. And this enabled focused feedback on each of the incentive programs that we are presenting to you today. Following that open house, the township did publish an online survey for those who were not in attendance to be able to share their feedback, and we received a total of 20 responses to that. So what we are proposing as the community improvement project area, this is the designated boundary of where the community improvement plan will apply, is predominantly the community of Smithville. And so this is focused on the urban area. As kind of as we outlined in the background report, this makes the most sense from a access to services perspective and supports aging in place. We reviewed 3 different municipal CIPs, so one for Blue Mountains, Fort Erie, as well as North Perth. We were looking for programs and incentives that aligned with the size and structure of West Lincoln as a municipality. And so building out of all of that best practice research, we have created a vision for the CIP, which is to invest in the livability of our community by providing the township with a toolbox of incentive programs for affordable housing for people of all ages and stages, connecting people to amenities and creating a more inclusive West Lincoln for all. And building on that vision, there are a number of goals, and this is what, as the community improvement plan gets implemented, the success of the CIP will be kind of scored against. So how the CIP has worked to potentially expand the supply of affordable housing in Smithville, diversifying housing options, reducing barriers to affordable and attainable housing development, encouraging homeowner participation in housing solutions, and maximizing the impact of municipal funding. So building on all that background research, we are today presenting draft programs for council and public consideration. What is really important to note about this is programs, eligibility, requirements, and values are all subject to change. And the way we've designed and approached this CIP is we're creating a menu of options that the township can draw from. So just because an option is potentially approved through the draft CIP, it will be subject to available funding. And we'll talk about that a little bit later in terms of how it might be approached through the municipal budgeting process. So the idea here is give you a wide range of options to implement that you are then considering annually through the budget process. So the first program that we have created is a municipal fee grant program. And so this is to reduce the costs of creating affordable housing by providing a grant through the form of a rebate to cover municipal planning and building fees for eligible projects, encouraging landlords and developers to bring forward applications that add to the local housing supply. And so specifically this will be for the costs incurred to seek approvals for affordable housing providers and nonprofits to be able to develop new affordable housing units. And it would specifically apply to township planning application fees and building permit fees. I'd also just like to note just because as the two processes are separate, providing a grant to cover the costs of municipal fees won't necessarily ensure the project will be approved by township. Those are two separate processes, but it is kind of included in there just as a note. The second program that would be available as part of this CIP is an additional residential unit grant. This program's presented again for council and consideration, but it's to support the creation of new additional residential units such as basement suites, garden suites, or coach houses by assisting with eligible construction, finishing, or building code compliance costs, really helping to expand the small scale supply of rental throughout the township. And what we're considering in terms of eligible costs would be up to $5,000 of the costs incurred to construct or convert an affordable additional residential unit. And this would include, at this point in time, legalizing and or bringing up to code existing basement ARUs. The third program we're looking at would be a top-up grant. And so this would be a grant that is built on one of the other existing programs. And so to be eligible for one of these grants, you would need to qualify for one of the other programs. And it's a top-up grant to incorporate universal or barrier-free design within a new residential unit, for example, an apartment, an ARU. And it has to be receiving a financial incentive from another source through the township and the CIP. And it would be designed to cover up to $3,000 of the costs to construct an accessible or barrier-free unit. The fourth incentive program is a top-up grant that provides additional support to projects that create purpose-built family-sized units or seniors units, recognizing the need for the growing need for multi-bedroom and attainable housing options. And this would apply to costs incurred for the construction of a family-sized unit or a seniors unit. The fifth program is a home upgrade grant, and so this would be a grant to assist eligible homeowners with minor home upgrades when improvements are necessary to accommodate new affordable or attainable units. And so this is a smaller value grant, but it's up to $1,500 of the costs incurred to upgrade home services to accommodate the addition of an additional dwelling unit within an existing residential home. And so this would be smaller cost programs such as upsizing water connections or improving the electrical capacity. As part of the CIP, council would be considering some non-financial incentive programs as well. These are to kind of contain within the CIP for the township to be able to provide focused or tailored support. So it could include education and capacity building workshops, a housing concierge or client support service, as well as a housing reserve. And the housing reserve would be a tool the township could use to build up funding and save funding for funding future incentive programs. And so that kind of gives the township the ability to save money to apply to incentive programs. In terms of implementation, the Planning Act enables an affordable housing CIP to run for a 5-year period. In terms of the timelines we'd be looking at, it would be beginning in March or April of 2026, once the CIP has been approved. Council may choose to open an application period for a specified amount of time or accept rolling applications and review them on a first-come, first-served basis, closing the application period when funding is exhausted. And council may choose to review this implementation period at any time through an amendment to the CIP. In terms of administration, there are different roles for Township Council as well as staff. The council role in this process is establishing the active financial programs, so choosing which incentive programs are active for any given year and that program's duration. Recognizing an annual CIP budget, so determining the community improvement plan budget for each active incentive project as part of the annual budgeting process, and then designating a plan administrator for the CIP. And so that person would be responsible for the CIP and its implementation. So that is proposed to be the Director of Growth and Sustainability or a designate. And so what this means is the administration of this programs and kind of the approval and disbursements would run through staff as part of the overall CIP. In terms of how one might apply for incentives, so the way it would work is you book a pre-application meeting with township staff to go over requirements for the application. A lot of the requirements will be spelled out rather than through the CIP, but through application forms to determine eligibility and criteria. And the applicant must be the registered property owner or have consent from the property owner. Once an application is submitted, it would be reviewed by the plan administrator for completion and compliance with general and program-specific eligibility requirements. And then if they're approved, the applicant would be notified, enter into a financial agreement with the township, and may begin work. And there's kind of different, for each of the different programs we've proposed, different kind of avenues towards that, end result. Through the application forms, we are looking at requiring different, supporting documents and a completed application form. And so the application form would require a statement describing how the project is meeting the CIP's goals and objectives, and then any other information that may support the township in evaluating that application. One of the important things is if it is not a township fee grant where you know kind of what the set costs are, you would be required to provide a minimum of 3 cost estimates for any proposed work done by a licensed consultant or contractor, as well as providing a budget. Application requirements should be outlined in a tailored application form for each financial incentive program. And once the application has been approved, the landowner would be required to enter into an agreement with the township to implement the incentive program requirements and may be required to register the agreement on title. In terms of how the project, how the community improvement plan will function, if there is an identified need for an amendment to the plan and its implementing bylaw, the township must approve these changes through an amendment to the CIP and or implementing bylaws. Through the CIP, we've written some exemptions into this. Specifically, an amendment to the CIP will not be required to reduce funding levels for the incentive programs or discontinue or cancel any of the programs identified. However, an amendment will be required to the CIP if you wanted to redefine the community improvement project area, extend the implementation period of the CIP, increase the maximum funding levels of the programs, and or add any new financial incentive programs. Once the CIP is approved by council, the plan administrator administrator will be responsible for the creation of an annual report to council, which summarizes the data collected on CIP uptake and successes. This may include, but is not limited to, case studies, landowner and tenant feedbacks, and how the CIP's goals and objectives are being met, with any recommendations for adjustments to programs or budgets, or recommendations for amendment. As part of the Affordable Housing CIP, there's also a recommended marketing plan for how the township may choose to promote the uptake of the Affordable Housing CIP and its incentives. What is important in terms of this is it will utilize staff time and resources to be able to administer and apply the CIP and disperse funding. And all of this information has been informed by public input. In terms of next steps, today we're at the statutory public meeting of council. We're here tonight to collect feedback, and throughout that process, we will make any adjustments to the CIP that may be required, as well as produce kind of a consultation and engagement summary that provides all of the feedback we've received on the plan to date, and then would bring it forward for council consideration on either March 2nd or March 23rd of 2026. And once council adopts the CIP, then you provide notice of adoption. At that point, there is an opportunity for members of the public to appeal the community improvement plan. And after the appeal period closes, that is when the CIP can come into effect and the township can then administer funding. So with that, that is everything in my presentation. I'm happy to take any questions.
Well, thank you very much, Michelle. That was pretty comprehensive. So now I will go to my colleagues of committee and ask if there's anyone looking for clarification from either things that were said by Mr. Borma or by Ms. Diplock. Councillor Bill.
Sorry.
Right, you know who I know, Riley.
All right. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Just for clarification, I have a very bad problem with names. So this is universal. Everyone knows to whisper to me.
No worries. You to the presenter, as our chair already mentioned, thank you for the presentation. Definitely a lot to take away there. I guess as far as at this point, my question regarding clarity is, I didn't see it, maybe I missed it, so please feel free to point to where it was, if it was there. What happens if an applicant starts going through the process and then fails to complete the process? I guess my concern is if fees of any capacity are waived, that's a cost that's incurred by the municipality, which then is passed on to the taxpayers. So I want to verify if there's an opportunity here, if should be considered, if it's already not highlighted, where maybe fees are collected in the beginning, and then based on the approval upon completion of the project, maybe that's when they then get returned. So if you could speak to that in any capacity.
Yes, so what we are proposing through this program is a fee waiver grant. And so what that would mean is, because it's a grant, you would have to pay the fees up front, and then when you've completed the application and determined kind of like whether or not you can set two different timeframes for when you might pay out the fees, either occupancy or building permit. For something like the Affordable Housing CIP, I would recommend personally that it would be to the building permit stage, because by that point, given the eligibility requirements that we've put in place, they would have to have an agreement from another level of government to be funding that. And so if you get to the building permit stage and all of those requirements are still in place, you've still got the funding agreements, chances are that project is proceeding as an affordable housing project. And then that is when the fees would be refunded or granted back to the applicant.
Perfect. I appreciate hearing that, because as I was looking, at you had some smaller end grants there that were available, and you get a few of those. Again, that can add up if somebody starts off with one thing or they come into some kind of financial thing. I guess the other question, for point of clarity, Madam Chair, is trying to. I realize in the report that comes later that we'll discuss, I think spoke more to what the current financial status is of the program and where funds are going to be. There's not a whole lot of funds there in the grand scheme of things, but just ensuring that we're utilizing maybe future surpluses and other avenues of funding resources, that it's not just going on the levy. We're not trying to make life, we're trying to make life more affordable. At the same time, we don't want to make life less affordable for those who are paying for it through the tax levy. So I guess, Madam Chair, through you, to any member of staff, I guess, are we at that point, or is this a question I should be addressing with later, and how that's going to be funded? Because in the report, it talks about the 2027 proposed budget process, and so my concern is that just gets dumped on the levy, and we're making life less affordable, even though we're trying to make life more affordable.
Through the chair, we can speak to that now, or we can speak to it at the report whenever you want me to speak to it.
So it's up to you, Madam Chair.
I believe that that's a question that's going to be. I believe that would be a question better put at the report stage.
Okay, so I'll bring that question back up then. Thank you.
Councillor Maychuk.
Through the chair, the one thing I didn't see, and I couldn't agree more, we need more affordable housing. But in saying that, within the application process, is there a criteria to determine that the individual has a financial need? That's one of my questions. And the other part is, I see that it's a complete grant. Is there any consideration of interest-free loan or part grant, part loan? And those are my two questions for consideration.
Yes, through the chair, I'll start with the interest-free grant versus loan. One of the things that we did consider was a loan program. What we chose to do in terms of presenting a grant was just the ease of administration for township staff to be able to deliver on that without needing to kind of hold money in a separate account and then pay it out then. And requiring those, I guess, same requirements on the applicant for a program. And do you mind just repeating your first question?
Yes, through the chair, it was more around determining whether or not the individual is in financial need. Because if they can afford to do it, certainly I don't think it's a responsibility of the taxpayer, appreciating we do need more affordable housing. So that was my first question.
So for the large, component of this incentive program, it is the fees waiver or fees grant program. To be able to be eligible for that grant program, you would have to be a nonprofit housing provider with an agreement from another level of government to provide funding for that project as well. And so that's kind of how you keep that demonstrated need, is they've got an agreement with the township, but also with another level of government to be providing that. And one of the primary reasons to have a CIP is typically other levels of government will require a municipal commitment as well to fund, and so this works with that to be able to deliver.
Question? Okay. Oh, my God. Seeing no other questions at this point in time, the floor is now open to members of the public to come forward and provide counsel with any oral or written submissions, either in person or on Zoom, pertaining to this proposed community improvement plan. When coming forward to the microphone, please speak by starting with providing your name. Speakers will be allowed up to 5 minutes to make comments to council, after which council may ask questions of clarification relating to the submission. Individuals are allowed to speak once to an application. So with that, is there anyone here in the chamber that wishes to speak to this report?
Pardon? Yes, slide in.
Is this one? Yeah, okay. Hey, Susan.
Through you, Chair. Good to be here. Legionville wanted to just provide some verbal updates on the, what's that, sir?
Sorry, if you could introduce yourselves.
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah,
before
Gord
we start
Sazi, Project Manager with Housing Services at the Niagara region.
I'm Peggy Cook, Chair of the Board of the Legion Villa. And yeah, we're here to talk about our project and how this particular funding is going to be affecting our project, hopefully. So we'll let Gord take the floor because he knows everything we need to know about it.
So the Legion Villa team, we were able to attend the CIP open house in January, and I think we all thought it was really helpful, really insightful for us to understand what types of support could be available through the CIP and what the mechanisms are and timeline to do so. And I think the programs that look like they might apply to the Legion Villa project are the municipal fee grant program and the accessibility top-up grant and the family seniors unit top-up grant. So obviously we were in support of those. Just wanted to provide some good news on the project. Schedule-wise, we're hitting all the milestones that we'd want to. So our site plan application is in, and we're working with town staff to achieve approvals and a draft agreement shortly. This is a big one. The primary capital funding application has been submitted to the federal Build Canada Homes program. So that's what we've been working towards for 5+ years now. And we want to thank the mayor's office for providing a support letter that we've included with the application. We know that goes a long way. We have secured additional regional support in 2 different forms. So the region has provided conditional approval for $2 million in grant through the provincial COCHI program. And there's also increased rent subsidy for the project. So essentially, we've gone from 25% of units to 35% being able to receive RGI funding or rent geared to income subsidy funding. So this increases the depth of affordability in the project, and it also allows the project to, from an operating side, to take on more debt, which helps with the capital costs.
So
I've left you a bit of leniency
Yep.
in providing us an opportunity to understand what kind of applications might come forward. But this is a time for talking about a CIP.
Yep.
It's generalities and what you are against or for with one we have proposed before you tonight. It's not specific, I apologize, but it's not specific to Legion Villa, and we shouldn't be listening to that. We need to be deciding whether we'll do a CIP right now, and I believe that's what Councillor Riley was going to correct me on.
Yes, that's exactly.
Through you, Chair, not a problem. We'll loop it back to the CIP now. Okay.
Thank you. Now, in fairness, I will say that the leniency we allowed provides anyone who's listening the understanding of what kind of things a group must go through. But I must ask you to stop that. No more references to Legion Villa tonight.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep. So looping it back to the CIP, I do need to just say once again that the CIP is critical for the project. The programs that are being presented that could be adopted for the CIP will work for this project.
It'll work for any project, sir. I need
Yep.
you to become more general, please, or we're going to have to ask
Okay.
you to curtail your discussion.
Okay, well,
Okay.
yeah, okay, then in general, I think the CIP is critical because 2026 data for the housing crisis is pretty sobering right now. It's getting worse across Niagara, in West Lincoln. We've seen an 18% increase in centralized waitlist applicants from 2024 to 2026. So the timing of this is critical. Any projects that are out there that are close to shovel-ready, like one that I may have been talking about earlier, really need the help. Okay.
In your territory, sir. I think we've got your gist. Please, stay at a general level. This is a night where a public meeting is being held to understand the generalities of putting in a community improvement program across our community to help anyone coming forward. So just let's leave it there.
Sure, Chair, I appreciate that, and I just thought I'd give some context with this specific project, that's all. Thank you.
If I may add, through the chair, I would encourage all of you as council members to really take this very seriously, because the need is great, no matter what project is being presented. It's something that's so lacking. The numbers speak for themselves. So as you go through this process, I highly recommend that you all recommend and approve this process so that projects that are in the works for the needs of affordable housing can be met with the support of the local municipality. And it's usually on a lot of these types of projects and bigger projects specifically, the support, as was mentioned in the presentation, is needed from the municipality in order to allow these projects to go through. So every level of government usually is involved with those types of projects. So I would encourage you to hopefully support anything that comes your way moving forward. And that's my input.
And Chair, just to touch on that as well. So it was mentioned during the presentation that these types of programs are important for nonprofits to receive funding from other levels of government. We've had confirmation that Build Canada Homes, which is the primary federal funding program right now, they've confirmed that, yes, they need to see municipal support to increase scoring, increase grant-to-loan ratio, that sort of thing. So this CIP for West Lincoln is critical for any nonprofit project that's going to go ahead.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Before I let these residents leave the podium, is there anyone here wishing to ask any questions of the presenters? And seeing none, thank you very much.
Okay. Thanks very much.
Thanks.
Is there anyone else wishing to come before committee and state comments or criticisms to the proposed CIP? I'm going to ask one more time, and then I'm going to ask Kevin if there's anyone online. Is there anyone else here in the chamber that wishes to come forward? Seeing none, I'm going to go to Kevin. Please, is there anyone out there in cyberspace?
I don't see any, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Okay. Seeing no one there, does council have any questions of clarifications from the presenter at this point in time? And remember, these are general questions with regard to a CIP, how it's created, how it would be used, and how it would be implemented. Councillor Maychuk.
Through the chair, we heard that municipal support is important for the higher levels of government, and appreciate our mayor being very supportive and providing a letter of support for this specific group, even though I'm not speaking to that, I'm speaking more general here. Does the higher levels of government specify specifically what they require from the municipality, knowing that a letter of support is just that, it's a letter of support as opposed to something very specific that the government can now say, yes, the municipality has met that threshold, and now we will fund that project because we've seen the level of support that we require to make this happen from our end.
Through the chair. Through the chair. There is typically a requirement of a financial contribution to the municipality. It is dependent on the specifics of any application type. Historically, the granting of fees can be considered that financial contribution, and that is typically how I've seen lower tier municipalities participate in all three levels of government supported financial programs. So.
Thank you. Councillor Maychuk, are you okay? Anyone else? I just have a question, and it's the CIP opportunities to assist with funding can be variable. It may not be the entirety of a fee structure. It's dependent on the municipality's ability to fund. Is that not correct? Have I got that wrong?
Through the chair.
To the chair.
Through the chair to the chair. In terms of the structure of the CIP, the way we built it out, right now, the CIP budget for the affordable housing CIP does not currently exist. That does not mean that you can't adopt the CIP as presented, but it would mean that the programs are unfunded. And so what this means is you can approve the CIP and choose to not fund any of the programs, and then it would just be a document you've adopted. What you can choose to do is adopt the CIP and fund certain programs in 1 year and different programs in another year. And so the two are separate in terms of you're using the budgeting and the amount of available municipal funding to turn off or on specific programs. And as you're marketing that, you may say, in 2027 is the year we want to have an affordable residential unit program, and we've got X amount of dollars to support that. And then you close that, and the next year you want to do the affordable housing fee waiver program, and that is the program that you choose to fund in any given year. And so that's how this will work.
That's great. One other question, and that is that the CIP funding that we would be looking at once we pass a CIP, if that's the choosing of council and committee, this is in addition to the waivers that are required by the province now with development charges and various other things.
Yes.
I just wanted that on the record. Okay. Thank you very much. Those are my questions. And seeing no other questions from members of council, I say that if there's no final questions, please be advised. If you wish to be further notified of this application, please sign the sheet at the side table near the council chamber doors as this ends tonight's public meeting with regard to CIPs. And thank you for your attention. The public meeting is now adjourned at 7:21. We're going on to the second public meeting of the night. Oh, and thank you very much, Ms. Diplock. Your help was very, your assistance was very helpful. Thank you. Okay, so the second public meeting for tonight is an amendment to the zoning bylaw. This is a public meeting with consideration for zoning bylaw amendments initiated by the Township. These are of a housekeeping nature and amendments to our existing zoning bylaw. The Planning Act requires in Section 34, Sub 12 and Section 39 that before passing a zoning bylaw amendment, Council must hold a public meeting for the purpose of informing the public. The purpose of this public meeting is to receive comments from the public and is the only opportunity to provide Council feedback with respect to the proposed amendments. It is the function of Council to listen to public meetings and ask questions of clarification only. It is not the function of Council to debate the merits of the proposed amendments during the public meetings or respond to questions posed by the public during this public meeting. Should the public have questions on the proposed amendments, please contact planning staff and they will be able to provide you with any information required. Please be aware that council debate of the proposed amendments to the zoning bylaw will occur at a subsequent meeting with an accompanying recommendation report regarding the proposed zoning bylaw amendment. In accordance with the Planning Act and the minister, the applicant or specified person, public body, or registered landowner of any land to which a bylaw amendment will apply, who made oral or written submissions at a public meeting to council prior to the adoption and or passage of the bylaw may appeal the bylaw amendment to the Ontario Land Tribunal. Mr. Clerk, will you please advise of the method and dates by which notice of this public meeting was given?
Proper notice was given by way of email circulation to agencies and newspaper circulation on January 12, 2026. Public notice was also posted on the Township website and the Township Administration Building on January 12, 2026.
Thank you very much. Ms. Smythe, I understand that as Manager of Community Planning and Design, you will be providing us with an explanation of the purpose and reason for the zoning bylaw amendment.
Yes, thank you. Good evening, Madam Chair, Committee and Council, and members of the public. The Township has initiated the housekeeping bylaw, and this is intended to address some minor items in the current comprehensive bylaw. For instance, the administration and enforcement of the bylaw, clarifying the regulations for driveway widths for access to agricultural lots, minor changes to on-farm diversify regulations such that they're consistent with provincial plans and guidelines, and to pre-zone the portion of the Spring Creek Heights Secondary Plan area to an employment M2 zone with a holding provision, such time as the secondary plan policies are in place to the satisfaction of the Township. I have just provided a slide just representing the location delineated in the red area as to where the pre-zoning area would be, not necessarily the entire red area, but that is just to depict the secondary plan. The policies that relate to the secondary plan for consideration for the removal of any holding provision in the future would be such limited to things such as site servicing, land use compatibility, and the appropriate setbacks to sensitive receptors, landscaping, and anything such as building heights as well. The township staff did receive letters of support from the agent Upper Canada Consultants that represents some landowners, Janko Steels and Stampak, for zoning permissions on the lands that will streamline the owner's ability to proceed with industrial development in accordance with the Spring Creek Heights Secondary Plan. It is understood that no site alteration or placing of any buildings or structures shall be permitted on the lands until site plan approvals and building permits are obtained and to the satisfaction of the township. And therefore, there is no objections with the proposed zoning, M2 with the holding provision. Additionally, Upper Canada Consultants represents the John Calvin Christian School, and there has been a request to rezone the lands that were subject to a lot boundary adjustment as institutional, which would be in alignment with the designations of the Spring Creek Heights Secondary Plan. Currently, the school facility resides in the institutional zone. However, the balance of the lands being where the existing fields to the rear of the school is in a development holding zone and industrial employment M2 zone. These zones are contrary to the special institutional designation of being in the Spring Creek Heights Secondary Plan. Therefore, if agreeable, there would be a similar holding provision to be applied on the institutional zone for the school and the fields for implementation of the Spring Creek Secondary Plan policies. And this would be to ensure that all of the land use compatibility for noise requirements are addressed prior to any holding provisions being removed and to any expansions of the facility contemplated in the future. Staff is also aware that there may be further areas of the bylaw that may need to be reviewed further. However, at this time, a detailed review and update will be undertaken following a completion of the new official plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Members of committee, are there any questions or clarifications being sought at this point in time? Seeing none, we'll move on to the opportunity for the public to place submissions forward. The floor is now open for members of the public to come forward and provide counsel with any oral or written submissions, either in person or on Zoom, pertaining to the proposed zoning bylaw amendment. When coming forward to speak, please provide your full name. Speakers will be allowed up to 5 minutes to make comments to council, after which council may ask questions of clarification relating to the submission. Individuals are allowed to speak once to an application. Am I seeing anyone wishing to come forward and speak to this proposed amendment? Seeing none. Kevin, are we alone, or is there people out there wishing to speak to us?
I don't see anybody, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Seeing none, I'm going to ask council if you have any questions of clarification on the matter. No? And seeing none, there's no one online, there's nobody from council asking any questions. So, and since there's no applicant here because it's one of general nature, I will not ask for concluding comments. I believe we've heard well enough from staff. So, please be advised, if you wish to be further notified of this application, sign the sheet at the side table near the council chambers door. This public meeting is adjourned at 7:28. Oh, man. That concludes our public meetings for this evening. And we will now move on to a question of needing to change the order of items on the agenda. I see none. There are no appointments or presentations asked for, so we will move on to items. Item 9, a request to address items on the agenda. 1 hour in total shall be allocated for this section of the agenda, and each individual person shall only be provided with 5 minutes to address the issue. Some exceptions could apply to that. A response may not be provided, and the matter may be referred to staff. A person who wishes to discuss a planning application or a matter that can be appealed will be permitted to speak for 10 minutes. Are there any members of the public here wishing to speak to the committee this evening? Seeing none, I will ask Kevin, is there anyone there wishing to speak to committee online?
Yes, there is one hand up, Madam Chair.
Okay, so will the person please speak and provide your name and the application to which you'd like to speak?
Good evening, Mayor, Council, Township staff. My name is James Thomas. I represent the landowners and the applicant for the street naming at Abington Condo. I don't wish to argue or cause any disruption, and once again just asking the request to consider the name of Magnolia for the vacant land condo in staff report item GS01-26. I appreciate staff's response to matters and staff recommendations, as well as the opinions of this council and the list of pre-approved names previously compiled. However, I'd like to ask council once again to consider the scope of this request. The future owners of these homes and the cul-de-sac have made the request to this name. They will also be your future constituents and owners of the private road that is not being dedicated to the responsibility of the township. This road and its maintenance will be the responsibility of these owners, and the only municipal responsibility will be on the region for waste pickup. A comment was made at the public meeting held last month that big developers tend to come in and look to simply leave their legacy when choosing these street names. And I can assure you that is not the case. This is Mr. Keiko's first ever development. There's no request to attach an affiliated name, nor is the request for Magnolia an offensive one. This request is simply being made by the future residents of Abington and the Township of West Lincoln that will be responsible for the private road. We ask you consider these matters when you make your decision, which we will respect regardless. Thank you very much for your time and consideration.
Thank you very much for your address. Are there any other people online or here wishing to address any items on the agenda this evening? Seeing none, I'll move on to the communications, of which there are none, so there's nothing to display for that. So we're moving into the staff reports. Item 11.1, item GS01-26. This is a recommendation report PD 04-2026 titled Proposed Street Name for Abington Road Condominium, file 2000-91-22 CDM, dated February 9th, 2026, be received, and that the township pass a bylaw to name the proposed street within the vacant land condominium Abington Road Development, Kerrigan Lane, in accordance with Schedule A of the attached draft bylaw. I'm looking for a mover and a seconder. Councillor Riley. I need a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Maychuk. That is now properly moved and seconded. Any comments? Councillor Riley?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you to our Director of Growth and Sustainability, a comment was made that about future residents already, I guess, having ownership or suggesting ownership of the property. To the best of your knowledge, are those lots that are coming in, have they all been purchased, or is this still too early for that stage?
Through the chair to Councillor Riley, this condominium has not been finalized yet and has not been granted final approval. They are very close to satisfying all their conditions, of which one is the street naming. So I don't believe those lots, condos lots, could be sold until that condominium is finalized. Whether or not they have purchase agreements in place, that I don't know. They've indicated to us that most of the lots are pre-sold already, and that's why they want to advance this.
Okay, appreciate that. And so my follow-up comment, Madam Chair, I appreciate staff coming back and actually addressing a name that's on the list. There's a name also provided by the applicant as a satisfactory name that they would settle with. And I think it's one of those things where I don't think, we're going to have to agree to disagree maybe with, some members of the community, but, we have a list here that's just being underutilized, and what's the point of having a list if we're always going to steer away from it? So I support the recommendation and, and see where the rest of the conversation goes from there.
Thank you, Councillor Riley. Any other comments? Seeing none, we have moved and seconded and no one left to speak, so I'm asking the clerk to put forward the vote. That motion carries. On to item GS 02-26. This is an item put forward by the Manager of Planning. It's that information report, PD 03-2026, titled Information Report. Township initiated housekeeping amendments to the zoning bylaw for public consultation dated February 9th, 2026, be received for information. I need a mover and a seconder for that. Mayor Gannan, Councillor Riley. Comments? Seeing none, Mr. Clerk, can you put forward the motion for, the vote for that one? And that motion carries. Moving to item 11.3, item GS 03-26, that information report, PD 05-2026, titled Information Report, Affordable Housing Community Improvement Plan, file number 1701-001-26, dated February 9th, 2026, be received for information. I need a mover and a seconder for that. Councillor Riley, Mayor Gannan. Comments? Councillor Riley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Back through you to our director, to the comment or question I asked earlier regarding other areas of funding. So you had a comment you were going to address either then or now, and now's the time.
Yes, thank you through the chair to Councillor Riley. So you'll see in our information report, we've just alluded to a potential source of funding to get this project off of the ground. So we currently have allocated in the planning reserve approximately $96,000. That's allocated currently towards the facade improvement program. The facade improvement program has not had any takers in the last few years. And so we're thinking that if council desires, that money could potentially be reallocated to the CIP program, Affordable Housing CIP program, if council desires to approve that. Ultimately, for this program to succeed, it does need to have a longer-term funding plan, which would most likely require money being allocated each year towards this project. And I'm thinking what we can probably do for that is when we bring a recommendation report forward, potentially next month, depending on if we get provincial comments back. We're just waiting on any provincial feedback yet. That's the dependency on timing right here. But we'll work with our CFO, Director of Corporate Services, to make sure that the funding options are outlined well for council to review and understand what sources of funding could be used to fund this in the long term. We believe that potentially we can utilize that existing allocation for the facade improvement program, and then in the preparation of future budgets with the mayor and council, we'll have to determine how they wish to fund this, because obviously the level of funding will depend on how many programs we can offer and how widespread those programs can be utilized.
Okay, thank you, and thank you, Madam Chair, for allowing the response. Again, it's one of those things where I realize we have to pull up our sleeves when we get to that point and really dig down deep on how that's going to impact the overall community as well. Hopefully we have some good years with surpluses and some other opportunities along the way, and hopefully we can advocate with the province to see what other future grants can come to support that, because I'd like to find, if we can, through you, Madam Chair, an opportunity to not have to burden the entire community, make their life less affordable while we're trying to make others more affordable, and yet we don't have necessarily a money tree. You know what I mean? So somebody's got to pay for it one way or another, and so hopefully we can find that. I know we have projects that eventually come off the levy, and maybe it's one of those things, as one project finishes up, we can redivert funds. We're not actually putting more stress on it. So I don't know. You guys got to figure it out and come back to us at the appropriate time, but I just wanted to express those concerns now. Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments? Oh, Councilor Maychuk?
Through the chair, I noted before that I think the responsibility of affordable housing is all levels of government. I guess it's a question of our director here. Is there a ways or means within the application process that grants only be given once there's assurance that there is provincial or federal funding, or both, to ensure that it's not just local taxpayers helping with the process, but there is assurance that there is outside provincial and federal funding also available?
Through the chair, I might start, but I might have to ask Michelle to come up here and finish. So I'm thinking there's a wide variety of programs that Nethery has put together. So some of those smaller programs like the accessibility grant or the family size unit grant, maybe those smaller ones where they're just working with one ADU, it might not make sense to require additional levels of government support because they're not going to get that. But maybe I'll let Michelle speak to the larger projects.
Please.
Yes. Sorry. Through the chair. So for the large program, there is kind of that condition that we can spell it through the application forms that they must be approved for funding with an affordable housing agreement through another level of government, particularly for previous CIPs. It's been the Housing Accelerator Fund through the federal government. It looks like the federal government is transitioning that towards the Build Canada Homes program. It remains to be seen how that program will roll out, but through the CIP, we have put in the conditions that to be eligible for fee waivers, you have to have an agreement with another level of government to support the development of affordable housing. So that's how you kind of put the parameters around the program for ensuring it really does go to those that need the affordable housing, but those projects that are supported by other levels of government.
Mayor Canaan?
Thank you. So I think to clarify through you, Madam Chair, what our guest, Michelle, is talking about is the very thing that I think that our presentation at our public meeting was not allowed to say is that they are supporting a CIP in our municipality because they already have reached out to the other levels of government to try to secure funding, but needed the reassurance that the municipality was also that third level of support. And so it was our intent that we have a CIP in place, not just to satisfy any one particular request, but anything that might come forward to us. So I think in fairness to everybody, it's a very complicated thing, but in terms of which side you sit on and when you're allowed to speak and so on, but ultimately it is for anything like this, the 3 different levels of government, and sometimes 4. In our case, sometimes there's also regional support for a similar thing that the municipalities are doing, where they also can secure funding from the region. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes. And I, too, want to comment on the fact I wish that they had stayed, our delegation had stayed behind to be here for this time because they could have spoken at length about the specifics of what they were looking for. But I think we've now, through our consultant, clarified a number of things that may have been questionable about development charges and various other things being extra. So I'm sure that we will see them again. Thank you. Any other questions? Oh, yeah. Councillor Rothing.
Okay, that'll be my last comment, Madam Chair. So for those who might have been watching the public meeting, I think it's really important, and I think our chair handled it exceptionally well. When we have public meetings before us, we have to speak specifically to the item. You can't get specific about a particular project. And so for those who are kind of wondering why we had to cut them off a little bit and re-steer them, is because it can get us into trouble, and that opens up a whole nother bag of worms for us. So Madam Chair, you handled it really well, and I hope that they understood it wasn't a personal thing. Unfortunately, we have rules we have to follow, and I just want to put that out there for those who are watching at home who may not, or those even in the gallery who might not understand what happened there. There's very strict rules we have to follow with how these public meetings are conducted, so thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Riley. And yes, those are quasi-judicial types of hearings that we have to follow strictly so that everybody has the right to proceed forward to anything, including the OLT, if they object to something that we've done. So we can't prejudge a case and we can't adjudicate on a case. We have to do it in a generality. So thank you very much for making that clear. I'm seeing no more questions or comments around the committee table, so I will move. It's an information report. We don't need to have a motion. Yeah, we do. I just, thank you. That's what I was looking for. There is a vote in front of you. I apologize. My voting mechanism hasn't been consistent tonight, so for some reason it didn't come up. That vote carries. And that concludes the staff reports. Moving on to other business. Item 12-1, GS 0426. This is for members of council, other business matters of an informative nature. None? Then we will move on to new business, which, of course, this is only for items that require immediate attention, direction, or must first be approved by a motion to introduce new item of business. Seeing none, we will move on to the last item on the agenda, which is adjournment. And I adjourn this meeting at 7:46.
All right. I'll adjourn this meeting at 7:50 p.m. Today is
He's adjourning.
adjourning. My goodness, sorry. I'm going to start. Going to commence this meeting. It's about 7:50 p.m. We just finished our growth and sustainability meeting. Now we're on our infrastructure committee meeting. I believe this is our first infrastructure committee meeting of 2026. Last month we had the committee of whole. I'm Councillor William Riley. I'll be the chair of your meeting tonight. I will mention that comments can be made from members of the public for a matter that is on the agenda by advising the chair during the request to address an item on the agenda section of this agenda. The public may submit written comments for matters that are on the agenda to jpaylove@westlincoln.ca before 4:30 on the day of the meeting for consideration by the committee. Comments received after 4:30 on the day of the committee meeting will be considered at the following council meeting, and comments submitted are included into the public record. This meeting, if you don't already know, is being live streamed and is available on the Township website, YouTube, all of our social media handles there. So I'm going to move on to our land acknowledgement statement. The Township of West Lincoln, being a part of the Niagara region, is situated on treaty land. This land is steeped in the rich history of the First Nations, such as the Haudenosaunee, the Haudenosaunee, and Anishinaabe, including the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. There are many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people from across Turtle Island that live and work in the Niagara today. The Township of West Lincoln, as part of the Regional Municipality of Niagara, stands with all Indigenous people, past and present, in promoting the wise stewardship of the lands on which we live. At this point, I'll look around here to see if there's any changes of orders of items on the agenda. Not seeing any. I'll go to disclosure of, wrong window here. Disclosure of pecuniary interest and or conflict of interest. Seeing any? Not seeing any. All right. We have no appointments this evening. So at this point, I'll go to request to address items on the agenda. Anybody in the gallery here would like to address an item on the agenda? Not seeing any. I'll go to IT. Kevin, how are we doing out there? All right. So we're going to move on to communications. There's no communications, so that brings us to staff reports. So the first staff report I have before me and is that information report I-06-2026 titled 2025 CLI-ECA Annual Performance Report dated February 9th, 2026 be received. If I can get a mover and seconder. Councillor Maychuk, Councillor Chichuk. Any questions or comments? Not seeing any. I'll go to the clerk to pull the question here. And that carries unanimously. I will note, I kind of got ahead things that Councillor Braderick and Councillor Rayner are unable to join us this evening. They send their regrets. Moving on to the next item, IC02-2026, and its information. So it's an information report. I-02-2026, and it's a 2025 DWQMS Management Review Summary. And that information report, I-02-2026, titled 2025 DWQMS Management Review Summary, dated February 9th, 2026, be received for information. If I can get a mover and seconder. Got Councillor Chichuk, Mayor Ganan. Any questions or comments on this one? Not seeing any. I will actually go to, I'll ask a question here. I'll go to our director here. If you could just, for those who are at home who don't have this in front of them, I think this is an important one to kind of talk about, is dealing with our drinking water. If maybe you can just give us a quick synopsis or summary of how we're doing, and if there's anything we could be doing better, or if anything we should be aware of.
Sure. Thank you, Chair. There's a few reports on tonight's agenda related to the Safe Drinking Waters Act and Ontario Regulation 170. The one in front of us today is currently is the DWQMS, which stands for Drinking Water Quality Management Systems. It's the management review summary. So on an annual basis, the legislation requires top management to have an annual meeting before the budget preparation to make sure that our water system is in compliant with the legislation and is in good order. So this report in front of you now is just a summary of the management review meeting. There's 15 key points that top management talks about every year before developing the budget process. So this report in front of you tonight just kind of summarizes that management review to ensure that administration is providing safe drinking water to the community.
Perfect, thank you. Any other members have questions? Nope, not seeing any. And I'll go to our clerk for the question. carries. Yeah, I showed everybody here. All right, so we're going to move on to item IC 03 2026, which is the information report I-04 2026-2025 Water Distribution System Annual Report. I need a mover and seconder for that one. I got Councilor Chichek, sorry, and Mayor Ganan. Any questions or comments? Not seeing any. Mr. Clerk, do your thing. And that carries as well. So now we have information report I-03 2026. Yeah, okay, 2025 Water Quality Annual Report, and this is an information report I-03 2026 titled 2025 Water Quality Annual Report dated February 9th, 2026, be received for information. I'm going to look to my left to see if there's any movers to here. Got Councilor Trombetta and Councilor Maychak. I got Mayor Ganan for a comment here.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So since I first came on council, and I guess my first look at these was in 2017, I've made a point of actually speaking to one of these, trying to decide which is the best, because we get all of these reports at the same time. But I do want to say that I do read them carefully, and I am amazed at actually how much work goes into making sure that when we turn on our tap, that we can be assured that that drinking water is really safe. And so I would like to thank our director and through him, Trey, who's in charge of that kind of thing. I think that we take for granted that that safe water is safe water. But one of the things that has surprised me, of course, was the very first training that we all had at Walkerton, when we realized how easily that could have been a small municipality like ours that had that trouble. And the other thing is, as I watched what was going on in Calgary with their massive infrastructure issues, and I thought about those people who formerly had every confidence that when they turned on their tap that their drinking water would also be safe. It really sort of hit home the old scenario that we thought we'd fixed and the new scenario that's still ongoing. So I think that these reports are mandated, but it's a really good thing because it makes us all take a really hard look at where our money is going. And I know that sometimes residents are concerned about their water bills. They think that water's free somehow because it just appears at their tap. But it really puts us in mind of just how much work, how much infrastructure is in place, how much that we have to be just on top of this all of the time, even though it's not something that we see regularly. So that's all. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's a great comment because, again, a lot of people do take for granted. And they just don't know the amount of work and quality testing that needs to go on and the investment into the infrastructure. And, yeah, it's sometimes left unrecognized. So any other comment? I got Councilor Maychak.
Through the chair to the director, just again echoing the mayor's thoughts, but how much forward thinking and preventative measures that are put in place to make sure not only we comply, but the water is safe at all times. So just want to commend yourself and the staff that have done that work.
Perfect. All right, so I will now go to the clerk to do his thing. All right, so that carries as well. All right, moving to item IC 0526, and it's a recommendation report I-05 2026 Niagara Region Waste Collection RFP, designated business area, also known as DBA, enhanced service levels. So I have a recommendation of I-05 2026 titled Niagara Region Waste Collection RFP, designated business areas, DBA, enhanced service levels, dated February 9th, 2026, be received. And that council direct the administration to request pricing through the Niagara Region upcoming waste collection RFP to maintain the existing enhanced waste collection service levels for the township's DBA beyond the current contract term, and that council direct administration to request provisional pricing through the region's RFP for additional enhanced service options as outlined in this report, and that administration report back to council with pricing results and recommendations for approval prior to the implementation of any enhanced services. So I need a mover and seconder for that. Councilor Trombetta, Councilor Maychak, and the floor is open for any questions or comments. Got nobody? So maybe first I'm going to go to the director to actually maybe speak to this. I think it's important that we get this out there.
Okay, through the chair to committee and the rest of council. Yeah, the information, the purpose of this report is it just lays out what our current enhanced service levels are in our DBA area, Downtown Business Association area to downtown area. In 2020, council approved these services and through the region's waste management contract, and those enhanced services are good until 2029 because that's when the region's waste management contract expires. The region is putting out another RFP later on this year for these types of enhanced services, and they will be implemented in 2029 and beyond in their next contract. So the purpose of this report is just to outline the existing enhanced services that we currently offer the DBA area and the price associated with that. The region would like to know if we want any more enhanced waste management collection in the DBA. So the thinking is let's get pricing for what we currently offer, the DBA, and then there's some other provisional enhanced services that are also offered in that RFP. So let's get pricing to see what that costs, and administration will do an analysis and then report back on what our recommendations are and how to continue forward once the existing contract expires and the region wants to award the future contract from 2029 and beyond. So a lot of that information is in this report. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, so I have Mayor Ganan and then Councillor Maychak.
So, thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, I was going to actually ask that you go to the director to explain some of that. I'd just like to point out that the one thing that has changed since our last enhancement is the fact that that we have some places that are no longer able to put out their recyclables. And so I think the one thing that in my opinion, we should most certainly investigate is the cardboard collection, because at least that would be giving something back to our downtown area or our stores, or maybe we have two locations, I don't know. But I think we need to investigate whether there's a way to help the non-eligible sources to at least deal with some of the cardboard that comes with the packaging and so on with their running their businesses. So that's all.
Yeah. Great comment. Oh, go ahead, Director.
Yeah, that through the chair, that cardboard collection is a very good example of a current service that we don't offer our DBA. So in the report, I'm suggesting that we ask the region to provide pricing for us to offer a bin somewhere in our downtown area so businesses can take their cardboard too. So let's see what that pricing is, and then we'll report back to council on our recommendations.
Perfect. I appreciate hearing that. I think that'll be really well received, considering they feel like they probably get a lot less for their taxes than what they're getting now. So hopefully we can deliver on that. Councillor Maychak?
I was just going to wait to ask you the question around what the enhancements are, but I can wait until that comes forward, unless you want to highlight some of those key enhancements for those that may be watching or may want to know.
Yeah, through the chair, I could do that. So the current enhanced level of services that are currently being offered in the DBA is basically containerized garbage service. So we have a few bins at municipal facilities that get picked up once a week. Those 4 bins are located at the Town Hall, the West Lincoln Community Center, the Operations Center, and our Wellandport Community Center and our Caister Community Center. And there's also 2 bins that are offered at a multi-residential property for pickup once a week. Another current enhanced service is garbage collection for the people in the DBA. The base level of garbage collection is once a week, a limit of 4 bags. If you're in the DBA, you currently get garbage collection 2 days a week, and the limit is 7 bags. And then we also have in-ground collection at the West Lincoln Community Center, which are those Moloch bins for recycling and organics. So that's the current level of service that we have. So we'll get pricing for that to see what that will be in the future. And then some of the provisional pricing that I'm suggesting that is currently that is also being offered that we currently don't have would be public space litter receptacle collectors. So the region picking up our garbage cans along the main arterial roads to the downtown area. So we're suggesting to get price for once a week pickup and twice a week pickup of our garbage cans. Let's see what that price will be. We talked about cardboard collection, so we could provide a location for a bin for a weekly pickup. Let's see what that pricing would be. And another option is additional organic collection. So right now, the base for organic collection is just once a week. So there is an option to get organics collected twice a week within the DBA. So that's another service that we'll try to get pricing for and see if it's something that we'll recommend back to council. And Schedule B of the report in front of you kind of lays out what other municipalities are doing for their enhanced collection. So it's a good comparison, benchmark comparison to see what other municipalities are doing, because every municipality downtown area is kind of different. So, so we did include Schedule B in this report so you can see what other municipalities are doing.
Any other questions? Not seeing any, Mr. Chair, or Mr. Clerk, my goodness. And that carries. Moves us to other business. Members of committee, any comments or anything around other business? I will make one. I'm gonna put my director on the spot again here. I had followed up with them once before, and so just kind of curious what you've learned regarding the. So just about a week or two ago, we had a situation where the downtown was kind of shut down to the rail system, and I guess my comments or questions when I had a couple residents reach out to me was more just trying to clarify if some of the proper protocols were followed as far as CN Rail goes, and did they notify the fire department, because there was quite a backup there, and I don't know what you could really what you've been able to learn or what you're able to share, but I want to make sure that if there was an opportunity to improve that, if we were making strides to improve that in the future, because that was quite a delay there in a community like ours with several of the crossroads blocked, and we're just trying to learn and get the message out there, what could be done in the future, and making sure that there was no risk to the community. I think that was also a concern that fire services couldn't get through they needed to. Thankfully, there was no reports of that, but just looking ahead.
Yeah, so I think I can't remember exactly what day it was, but it was during one of the winter events. A train at the CP rail malfunctioned, and it blocked three of the roads: South Quincy Road 5, Regional Road 14, and Industrial Park Road. Yeah, the roads were blocked. I think the train had a mechanical malfunction. Once one of our snowplow operators noticed, we contacted our road superintendent, and they reached out to CP to learn that it was a mechanical failure, and it took a good hour, maybe an hour and a half, before they finally were able to move the train to clear the roadway. We notified our fire department right away so that they were aware. What I learned was CP did notify Niagara Regional Police, and Niagara Regional Police notified the main dispatch area for fire emergency, but the fire chief will be following up with CP to try to improve those communications, but I believe the way the communication was going to be handled was Niagara Regional Police was notified, then the main dispatch center was, just in case a call did come in, when they did call in our volunteer firefighters, the message would be relayed at that time. Yeah. Because you never know how long the train would have been there or when it would be open. So dispatch would have notified our emergency services if the roads were still blocked, if they ever had to dispatch fire services. But I believe the fire chief followed up with CP and okay, the main call center to make sure the proper protocol was followed.
Perfect, appreciate that, and I think for those of the community that that were impacted by it, they understand. No one can predict when the train's going to break down, and a few minutes here and there. The idea is, because there was a substantial amount of time wanting to ensure that proper protocols were followed, and that there was no risk to the community. Worst thing you'd hate to think is that emergency comes up and we have our volunteer firefighters stranded on the other side, and they go to one road that's closed, they go to the next road that's closed. So we want to make sure that communication's working, and that's great to hear. So, anyways, any other members of committee? Not seeing any. Okay, so sorry. My eyes are too quick. All
You
right,
went,
go
you went
for
to
it.
yourself first, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
So,
Go ahead,
so
Madam Chair.
council received an email today about a hockey game on Family Day.
Yes.
And because that's coming up so quickly, I thought that I'd take this opportunity to remind people, first of all, that there are lots of Family Day activities going on at our community center on Monday, starting with the fire department's pancake breakfast that runs almost all morning or until all the pancakes have been sold or given out. But what's happening that's different is there's often been a sledge hockey game or a minor hockey game or our fire department playing somebody else. And this time it's actually an opportunity to showcase the St. Catharines Saints and the Stony Creek Tigers, who are playing one of their Allen Cup hockey games here. And they're doing that as a way of testing the market to see what the interest is in that level of hockey in our community. And so I know that there were a couple of questions about why there is a cost to this hockey game on Family Day, but it is because it's sort of an event within our Family Day event. And the price is $15 for adults, seniors and students 10 to 17, $10. Kids under that are free. And they're really looking very carefully to provide a fun hockey game that's at a high caliber of hockey that just indicates whether we're missing that in West Lincoln and might be interested in having a team be there on a regular basis. From my perspective, I know it's something that we looked at once before about the possibility of a team in town that would provide entertainment for all levels of people who just want to get out of an evening, including some of our youth who are just looking for something to do of an evening, with their friends. And so hopefully it goes well. I wasn't sure from the message we got today whether members of council actually realized who it was and what it was that this game was all about. And I certainly know that we're going to have to all help get that out to the public if it's something that we're interested in doing. But we'll make for a very interesting Family Day, I think, in town. So
Yeah,
thank
if I'm
you.
not mistaken, they were AAA team. I think I read in the email there, so definitely a much
Yeah.
higher caliber than what we were probably used
Allen
to seeing
Cup
there.
hockey is what it says.
So
so.
Councillor Chichak, then Councillor Maychak.
I'm glad that the mayor clarified the costs because I did look myself and couldn't find it and couldn't find how to get the tickets as much as it said it was in there somewhere, but it was
In
difficult.
the email, yeah.
It was, so the fact that I think there is an interest for people to see better hockey or older hockey in the arena. It was designed to hold that kind of events, and it'd be great if we could get some enthusiasm for watching young people that have outgrown our house leagues and are doing quite well with their careers in hockey. So looking forward to that game.
And I'll go back to Mike because I realized I never asked if
Thank
were
you. If you
done.
just go back to that, I just actually pulled up the announcement. It says tickets can be purchased through the West Snag or Minor Hockey Association, and $5 from each of the adult tickets is going back to our local association.
Oh, fantastic.
So that's a good thing. It also says that tickets are available at the door on game day or online anytime. So there are a variety of ways that people can get involved. So.
And what time of day, you have your email up in front of you?
2:30.
2:30, okay. Just
2:30
wanted to
in
make
the
sure for anyone
afternoon.
who's watching. Councillor Maychak?
Through the chair, having attended the Allen Cup and know Don Robertson of the Dundas Real McCoys, yes, the players are older, but many of the players, or some of the players, are former National Hockey League players and players that played at other highest levels or professional hockey or played in places like Europe. So there is some outstanding players, and it's certainly worth watching. And if anybody gets a chance, do go out. It's really good hockey and some outstanding players. I know Rick Vive played for years after his retirement with the Leafs, but yeah, there's some really good players, and it's great hockey to watch, so it's worth going.
Excellent. And Councillor, you got anything? All right, so that being the case, let me bring my screen back up here. So that's it for other business. There's no new item, so I guess that brings us to, and there's no extra confidential matters, so that brings us to adjournment. I'll adjourn the meeting at 8:15 p.m. Thank you very